Welcome back, or if you're just joining us, welcome. We are going through the Algebra 1 SOL released from 2014, question by question. We are on question number 4. The directions here say to click on a box to choose each expression you want to select. You must select all correct expressions. So this is what we call a TEI item because it's technology enhanced. It's not a multiple choice item. The question itself is not in the gray box. The directions are in the gray box. So let's pop down to the question. The question says, identify each expression that is a factor of this polynomial, 4x squared minus 2x minus 2. So let's pull out our important parts here. I would definitely say that the word factor is going to be very important. Okay, when we factor, there's several different ways to factor. I teach a box method, which I'm going to show you. There's also a greatest common factor, which is part of this problem. You can use guess and check, and then there's just basic factoring trinomials. So if I don't show you your method, please be sure to speak with your teacher for a different way. All right, first thing I want to do when I'm factoring is really important for the SOL here. We've got to make sure that we take out our greatest common factor. That's a number that each term is divisible by. So in this case, if I look at the coefficients 4, -2, and -2, I can certainly take out a 2 from all of those terms because they're all even. Now, when they get a little bit higher, you might have to work a little bit harder to find the greatest common factor, but in this case, it's definitely 2. Now, I want to make sure that I take out a positive 2 because I always want my first term to remain positive. It helps factoring be a little bit easier. So I'm going to take out a positive 2 as my GCF. So I'm going to acknowledge my GCF is 2, and I'm going to write what remains by dividing each term by my GCF. So 4x squared is going to be divided by 2. So 4x squared divided by 2 is going to leave me with 2x squared. I'm backwards distributing in case you're getting lost. If I divide by 2 here, -2x divided by 2 leaves me with a -x, or a -1x if you prefer. And finally, when I divide the last term by 2, I'm left with -1. So what I've actually done is I've found one of the factors that we are looking for. So if I were taking my SOL test, I would certainly want to make sure that I press the button with a 2 on it, because if you forget the GCF, the whole problem is going to be wrong. Okay? Now, I'm still not done. That word factor is really important. I've got to continue factoring until I cannot factor this any further. So now I've taken care of my GCF. I need to factor what remains with 2x squared minus x minus 1. Now I teach a box method. I'm going to show that to you now. If you don't like it, you're obviously welcome to use guess and check. Okay? The way we set up our box, whenever we have a trinomial, I set up 4 boxes because ultimately, if you guys are familiar with factoring by grouping, you know that you have to split that middle term into a sum of 2 terms that is the same. So we're going to do the same thing with grouping here. We're going to create a 4-box method here. So I put my first term, 2x squared, in my first box. And I put my last term, -1, in the last box. I always have to multiply A and C. Okay? So when I multiply 2, which is my first coefficient, and -1, which is my last, I get -2. So I am trying to find factors of -2. But that's not all. We're looking for special factors. We're looking to add up to be -1. Okay? So factors of 2 are just 1 and 2. Factors of -2, however, can be -1 and +2, or +1 and -2. Now, of those 2 options, obviously the second one is the only one that's going to add up to be -1. So what we're going to do is fill in those 2 working numbers here, 1 and -2, into our box. And what's nice is it doesn't matter what order you put them in. It works just like grouping. Okay? But you do have to attach the middle term or the linear term onto it. Our middle term of our polynomial has an x on it. Therefore, our middle terms in our box have to have an x on it. Now, just like grouping, all you have to do is factor out the GCF. So if I take the greatest common factor of 2x squared and 1x, all I'm going to be able to take out of that is an x. Looking down here, I have negative 2x and negative 1. I can certainly take out a negative, but other than that, that's all I have in common, so I'm going to make sure that's a negative 1. GCF going vertically, the GCF of 2x squared and negative 2x is a 2x. And if you ever want to check yourself, the top boxes should multiply out. So 2x times x does indeed give you 2x squared in the area. And finally, the GCF of 1x and negative 1 is a positive 1. So what I have done is I have actually factored this. My GCF was 2. I factored it all the way down to 2x plus 1 as a length of my box and x minus 1 as a width. So this is fully factored because I ended up with two linear terms, 2x plus 1 and x minus 1. So those are the other boxes I would want to make sure that I highlight here. So 2x plus 1 and x minus 1. All right, thank you so much for your attention.